Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will share with you terrifying tales of neighborhood terror. And don't forget to hit the like button if you want to see more videos like these. Let's begin. Empty house. My girlfriend and I recently moved into our new house. It's the home we've been dreaming of, and we rescued a cat, which we named Bella. For the first week or so, everything felt perfect. The only downside was the abandoned house to our right. The owner had started renovating, but never finished. The layout left the entrances to our back gardens adjacent, and there was no fence between them, because the owner had removed it to install a new one and never completed the job. That left both back gardens with open access. Behind the abandoned house was another property. From what we could see, several young men lived there. Occasionally, we'd come home and see them cutting through the neighbor's back garden to reach the front street. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe they had permission. But on our first night, while sitting in our back garden, we looked up and noticed a man staring at us from a dark room in the house behind us. He stared blankly for half an hour. We went inside and settled for the night. The next few days were normal. Then one night, while sitting in the garden, we heard a makeshift wooden fence being moved. 3 men appeared, standing and staring. One, the youngest, around 29, carried a big bag and offered us stolen washing up tablets, which we refused. They left after a brief, awkward exchange, but afterward they started coming into our garden more often. One evening, they sat in what was originally their garden, but had become our garden since the fence was down, lit a fire, and played music. We found it unnerving and asked them to leave. Eventually, we came home to find they declined over our fence and were now sitting in our garden. My girlfriend and I are both 20, and we couldn't help but feel they were trying to intimidate us. So we asked them to leave again. They obliged, but then started coming into our garden at night. We installed security cameras, motion sensor lights, and an alarm system. One day, 2 police officers entered the abandoned garden, looked around, and left without explanation. A few days later, they knocked on our door and told us the house behind us was vacant and that the men had been kicked out for antisocial behavior toward neighbors. We felt relieved. At least they couldn't escalate things. But then things worsened. One night while I was in the bath, I heard a loud bang outside. My girlfriend was recording from the spare bedroom window when a man we hadn't seen before pointed at our bedroom window, sprinted toward our house, tried the door handle, then ran back into the garden. I opened the bathroom window and yelled at him, at which point he climbed back over the fence. My girlfriend watched him walk back into the abandoned house. We called the police, but they said they wouldn't do anything about it. A few nights later, we heard whistling at 2:16 a.m., the kind used to harass women. We both looked out our windows and saw nothing. Someone tapped on our window. Our cameras didn't record anything. We stayed at my mom's that night. The next morning, we found our Ring doorbell removed and placed on the floor. The SD card was gone. The police said the camera removal could be a sign of planning and told us to lock all doors and windows. Despite multiple reports, the harassment continued. One night, we heard loud voices and smashing glass in the abandoned garden. We checked the live feed and saw a man in a black mask standing in our garden with his arms spread like he was imitating Jesus on the cross. He stared at our bedroom window, then walked across the street and stood there staring at our house for 30 minutes. We called the police again, but they said it wasn't illegal to stare at someone's property. They seemed to dismiss our fear. A few nights after that, at 2:52 a.m., 2 masked men appeared, shining flashlights into our windows. One held what looked like a crowbar. He frequently stood across the street, pointing, waving, or shouting at our window, always staring blankly. We felt powerless. I called the police again, but they said it wasn't illegal to stare at our house. We recorded more incidents and remained terrified. Caleb, I know how this will sound, paranoid or unhinged, but everything actually happened. It started with faces that looked slightly off. 3 months ago, I ended a 2-year relationship with my ex, Caleb. He wasn't violent, but he was controlling and possessive in a subtle, calculating way. He tracked my phone usage and questioned me about my day. After I left him, I changed my number, disabled social media, and moved apartments. Then strangers began repeating phrases only Caleb used. A barista called me Sunshine, his sarcastic nickname. A rideshare driver asked, "Ever figure out what you're running from?" A line Caleb used. A woman at the grocery store whispered, "You don't get to just disappear." Another person passed and muttered, "Still wearing your hair like that?" These weren't his face, but the expressions in their eyes felt the same. It happened repeatedly until I began to doubt my sanity. I messaged Caleb's sister to tell him to stop. She replied that Caleb was in rehab and had been there for 6 weeks with no phone. She later posted a photo of him looking pale in rehab, which confirmed he couldn't be directly orchestrating this. Still, someone was feeding strangers lines he'd used. Once, returning late at night, a man on a stoop said, "Cold out tonight, huh, sunshine?" I found my doormat flipped over and beneath it a scribbled message. "You can change your face too if you want, but I'll still recognize you." I panicked and booked a hotel for the weekend. In the hotel at around 2 a.m., someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. I looked through the peephole. A woman in her 40s stood expressionless, staring straight at the door, and then left. The front desk confirmed no one should have been there. I started to suspect Caleb had hired people or used a forum to seed phrases and behaviors into public interactions. Psychological graffiti meant to keep me watching and anxious. I moved again, changed my hair, disappeared from social media, and begged friends not to tell anyone where I was. Yet the incidents continued. A woman on the street still called me Sunshine. I'm left terrified and mistrustful of people's faces. The paranoia is eroding my mental health. The jester. My family rarely travels, so everyone was surprised when my aunt suggested a trip to one of Michigan's Great Lakes. 8 of us stayed in a spacious Airbnb by the beach. Because of the group size, some guests were put in a second building behind the main house, a 2-story garage with bedrooms upstairs. My 3 cousins and I were assigned to sleep there. The garage felt neglected, moldy carpeted bathrooms, stained linens, and a poorly secured latch. We did laundry late into the night and went to bed around 2:37 a.m. I'm a light sleeper. Around 3 a.m., we heard a loud crash against the garage door, like someone had thrown their body into it. Then again. Then a 3rd time. The building trembled. 20 minutes later, one of our cousins bolted upright. The banging continued. My cousin went to the window and saw a dark figure near the garage door. She screamed. The figure was gone when we checked. My cousin screamed again as the figure reappeared. My other cousin and I went downstairs and peered out the window, but we saw nothing. My 3rd cousin and I returned to our bedrooms to wait for the commotion to end. However, the crashes continued periodically for the next hour, then silence. My cousin and I bolted upright again. The banging had started anew. My cousin went to the window and saw the dark figure again. This time he was closer, almost touching the window. We couldn't make out any details, but he was definitely there. My cousin shouted at the figure and he vanished. We checked and saw no one. My cousin and I went to the window and saw only a strange hat lying on the ground. The hat looked old and demonic. My cousin picked it up and threw it away. We never saw the man again. The next night, someone tried the basement door. It rattled as if someone had attempted to force it, yet there was no one there when we checked. We left the Airbnb early the next day. We contacted the host, who said she would review camera footage above the garage door, but we never heard back. It made us wonder whether she knew the man or if he was a local who resented guests. When we first arrived, a woman next door had watched us from a distance with a cold, unfriendly gaze. The whole experience ruined the trip. We didn't deserve it. We were respectful guests, but what happened felt deliberate and threatening, and we left still unsure of what or who we had encountered. That's all for today's video. Comment below which story scared you the most. And don't forget to hit the like button if you want to see more videos like these. Thanks for watching.